Okay, I think we're recording now. Everybody, welcome to our webinar on working safely in the summer heat. My name is Mark Knott. I'm a safety consultant at ESG, Century 2, and Professional Staff Management. Today we have Jeff Chilcott. He is a senior risk engineer consultant with Zurich, and he is going to take over this presentation and tell us more about working safely in the summer heat. Jeff, you go ahead and I'll kind of lead the slides from here, but I'll let you walk us through it.
Okay, yeah, I'm just on that slide about Zurich. Just so everybody knows, Zurich is an insurance carrier, and we do a lot of PEOs like Oasis Outsourcing and ESG and a lot of other companies. So I'm a safety guy, basically. Risk engineering is my title, but I go through like Mark does. We work with carriers and clients to kind of be proactive. We're trying to be safe before the claims hit. So I'm just going to go over some the agenda today, what we'll cover. And this is timely. Here we are with the summer heat hitting. I'm in Tampa, Florida, and it's the first few months of this year have been records just about every week, it seems like. So I know you guys are scattered around different areas, but from where I'm standing, this is a timely topic. So we're just going to share some best practices with you guys. We don't want anybody to have an employee be overcome by heat, stressed out and having to call 911 and all that. So that's what we're trying to prevent. So we're going to go over heat-related illness, what it is, some types of heat stress, some preventative measures, and we've got some resources we can show you where to go to, and just a little summary at the end. So the next slide is heat stress. So heat stress is an ongoing problem for both indoor and outdoor workers. It's not just the agricultural or construction guy out in the field. You could be a welder working down in a tank, wearing all this hot long sleeve kind of outfit with the mask and everything, and you're indoors, but you could still be overcome by heat stress. In 2014 alone, there were 2,630 workers suffering from heat illness. 18 of those died from heat stroke and related causes on the job. 18 doesn't sound like a real big number until one of them is your family member or one of your employees. So we're trying to make the number zero. Any workplace may represent a heat stress exposure if high temperatures and strenuous work are present. Under OSHA law, employers are responsible for providing workplaces free of known safety hazard. This includes protecting workers from extreme heat. There's no OSHA standard that says, you need to protect your employees from heat other than, you guys may have heard of the general duty clause. That's when there's no standard or rule in place, the general duty clause always kicks in. That's like the all-encompassing safety 101 kind of thing. Next slide. New workers are more at risk. If you're working outdoors generally, that's more at risk for heat-related illnesses, but I gave you the example earlier of like a welder or somebody working indoor could also be exposed. Back in 2005, Cal OSHA investigated 25 incidents of heat-related illness. In almost half those cases, the worker involved was on their first day of work. And in 80% of the cases, the worker involved had only been on the job for 4 or fewer days. So we definitely need to focus on new hire orientation, make sure, they're getting acclimated to the job and so forth. Next slide. Workers become overheated from two primary sources. The environmental conditions in which they're working, for example, are they out in the hot sun all day? They're up on a roof. They're, out in a field picking tomatoes or whatever. Obviously, it's a big environmental exposure. And you put that in combination with the internal heat generated just by doing physical labor. We're coming up on summer, and you'll hear about football players, whether it's high school, college, pro. They're all out there doing summer workouts, and there's always every year some guys are passing out. So we're trying to prevent some of that, whether it's sports or your workers. Heat-related illness occurs when the body is not able to lose enough heat to balance the heat generated by physical work and external heat sources. Next slide. There's several types of heat stress. Common symptoms of heat stress may be gradual, including severe thirst, but excessive and uncontrolled exposure can really lead to death. Below are common heat stress conditions in order of severity. The most severe ones are heat exhaustion and heat stroke. They require immediate medical attention. On the next slide, you'll see some graphics. This is off the OSHA website. They have a really really good amount of resources for your training if you're looking for some resources. So heat exhaustion, you can see the little pictures there. You know, you're dizzy, you got a headache, cramps, nausea, the whole deal. You know, you're just not feeling good. It's really bad. The key is, I mean, obviously you want to get medical attention at that point, but the difference between that and on the right where it says heat stroke is that first thing where the guy's kind of red. If the employee's not sweating, you're really in trouble. That's really 911 time. So I always tell the workers that I see is, you know, sweating is good. It's not fun, but at least you're sweating. You're alive. Go to the next slide, Mark. Heat index. This is a combination when you take the heat, the temperature outside, say it's 85 degrees, but if you throw in the humidity, that's going to be the heat index. Sometimes your weather guy on the news will say the feel-like temperature is 105 today or whatever. So that's how they get that. Basically, you can see the right down there from the yellow to the red. You know, you can start out at 91 and it's low caution up to very high and extreme. So all we ask is that you kind of have your supervisors or whoever's working with the employees just kind of take that into consideration. Next slide. So Mark and I and all the safety professionals out there, what we try to do with all of our customers is we try to promote 3 different ways of being safe. You may have heard of people wearing PPE. That's like the last resort. The first thing you always want to do is look at your engineering controls. Those are measures that reduce the exposure to solar UV rays by a physical change to the work. For example, providing shade. You know, it may not always be possible, but if it is, that's the way to go. It reduces the workplace exposure to direct and indirect sources of solar UV rays. Shade is one of the most effective forms of sun protection for outdoor workers. On many work sites, shade will most likely come in shapes of artificial or temporary portable structures, which can easily be erected and adapted to suit different types of environments. Years ago, you know, you wouldn't see a guy standing over a manhole cover, maybe like your phone company or the cable guy, without a little umbrella, maybe, or an awning. Now you see a lot of those set up. Public Works departments are doing that. Even if it is difficult for work to occur in the shade, provision should be made for at least taking some breaks in the shade. You know, it's about 15 to 20 degrees cooler in the shade than in the direct sun. Next up, if you can't engineer out the problem, you try to use some administrative controls. It says here that administrative controls are measures that reduce exposure to solar UV rays by a change in work procedure and how the work is organized. So you could do rescheduling activities to minimize work, plan work routines, so outdoor work tasks maybe are done early in the morning, then later in the afternoon, or at nighttime when, excuse me, when levels of solar UV rays are lower. You can plan work routines indoors or shaded work areas during the middle of the day when levels of solar UV rays are the strongest. Basically, every job site is a little different and your work environment is going to be different. So all you have to do is just consider, you know, maybe we can't eliminate everything, but maybe we can do a little job rotation. We can encourage people to take a lot of water for one thing, take little breaks here and there, see if you can schedule some things maybe earlier in the day than later in the day and so forth. In the last resort is PPE. That's always our last resort. Some companies, that's their first go-to thing, but that really should be your last resort. But personal protective equipment such as maybe wearing a hat or some long sleeves, wearing sunblock, sunglasses, those sorts of things. Okay, next up, next slide says resources. We have a nice risk topic. It's just a little couple-page kind of document called Preventing Heat Stress. I'll send that to Mark after the webinar here, and he can forward it out to whoever needs it. But the OSHA website really is really good. Just go to osha.gov, and there's a little search bar, and you can type in from A to Z any topic you want. Type in heat illness, and you're going to find just tons of material, training material. They even have a smartphone app now. You can see a little picture of it there. It kind of tells you what the heat index is, considering, you know, what the temperature is plus the humidity. And has a little, you can see on the right there, precautions. You know, you click on that and it tells you some things, sort of like what I just had on the prior slides. And next up, just a summary. Heat-related illness can be prevented. You know, there's, like I said, about 18 people every year that are dying of this, and it just doesn't have to happen. So we can take some precautions, have a plan, track the weather, provide some training. This is the time of year to do it. acclimatize your employees to the heat. You know, if you have people who are just not used to the heat, maybe they just moved from the north to the south or whatever at the wrong time of year, you know, you got to get acclimatized. You can't just jump in and work in 100-degree heat. Drink water every 15 minutes, you know, even if you don't think you're thirsty, just all day long, you should be drinking some water or Gatorade, something like that. Don't just load up on caffeine, you know, coffee and Coke and Pepsi and all that. Nothing wrong with mixing one or two in, but you don't want to drink that all day because caffeine kind of has the adverse effect. It takes something, it makes it even worse. So you need to just have a lot of water in you. Rest, you know, we talked about that earlier. Make sure you're getting some rest, find some shade, get under a tree for a little bit, wear a hat, maybe some light colored clothing, learn the signs of heat illness and what to do if in an emergency. Don't hesitate to call 911. You know, if it's really bad, like I said, if somebody's not sweating, they're not going to come out of it. You got to get some help. And keep an eye on fellow workers. So those are the basic things I wanted to go over. I don't know, Mark, at this point, if you want to do any question and answer, but that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you very much, Jeff. No, that's a lot of good information. I know that even myself, there's been a Saturday where I'm working outside and I just want to keep working without taking a break. And I've had that, you know, getting dizzy and sick. And so, yeah, I've definitely had experiences like this where I just wasn't taking care of myself. And so it's even easier to do when it's your full-time job out in the sun. So thank you for this. This is good information. If anybody does have a question, we can definitely take a moment. I'll see if anybody has any questions. But I don't see anything coming up, so we'll just, they can always contact myself or anybody from ESG, Century 2, or professional staff management. They can definitely ask questions that way. Jeff, we definitely want to thank you for joining us today, and anybody else who's watching as well, so thank you very much.